Where Did the Handsome Beloved Go? By Jalal al-Din Rumi, translated by Brad Gooch. Where did the handsome beloved go? I wonder, where did that tall, shapely cypress tree go? He spread his light among us like a candle. Where did he go? So strange, where did he go without me? All day long my heart trembles like a leaf all alone at midnight. Where did that beloved go? Go to the road and ask any passing traveler, that soul-stirring companion. Where did he go? Go to the garden and ask the gardener, that tall, shapely rose stem, where did he go? Go to the rooftop and ask the watchman, that unique sultan, where did he go? Like a madman I search in the meadows, that deer in the meadows, where did he go? My tearful eyes overflow like a river, that pearl in the vast sea, where did he go? All night long I implore both moon and Venus, that lovely face like a moon. Where did he go? If he is mine, why is he with others? Since he's not here, to what there did he go? If his heart and soul are joined with God, and he left this realm of earth and water, where did he go? Tell me clearly, Shams of Tabriz, of whom it is said the sun never dies, where did he go? Thank you.
To Have Without Holding by Marge Piercy. Learning to love differently is hard. Love with the hands wide open. Love with the doors banging on their hinges, the cupboard unlocked. The wind roaring and whimpering in the rooms, rustling the sheets and snapping the blinds that thwack like rubber bands in an open palm. It hurts to love wide open, stretching the muscles that feel as if they are made of wet plaster, then of blunt knives, then of sharp knives. It hurts to thwart the reflexes of grab, of clutch, to love and let go again and again. It pesters to remember the lover who is not in the bed, to hold back what is owed to the work that gutters like a candle in a cave without air, to love consciously, conscientiously, concretely, constructively. I can't do it. You say it's killing me, but you thrive. You glow on the street like a neon raspberry. You float and sail. A helium balloon. Bright bachelors, button blue and bobbing on the cold and hot winds of our breath as we make and unmake in passionate diastole and systole. The rhythm of our unbound bonding. To have and not to hold. To love with minimized malice. Hunger and anger, moment by moment, balanced.
The Affliction of Richard by Robert Bridges. Love not too much, but how? When thou hast made me such, and dost thy gifts bestow, how can I love too much? Though I must fear to lose and drown my joy and care, with all its thorns I choose the path of love and prayer. Though thou, I know not why, didst kill my childish trust, that breach with toil did I repair, because I must. In spite of frightening schemes, which with the fines of hell blaspheme thee in my dreams. So far I have hoped well. But what the heavenly key, what marvel in me wrought, shall quite exculpate thee? have no shadow of thought. What am I that complain? The love from which began my questions sad and vain justifies thee to man.
The Paradox by Paul Laurence Dunbar. I am the mother of sorrows. I am the ender of grief. I am the bud and the blossom. I am the late falling leaf. I am thy priest and thy poet. I am thy serf and thy king. I cure the tears of the heartsick. When I come near, they shall sing. White are my hands as the snowdrop, swart are my fingers as clay. Dark is my frown as the midnight, fair is my brow as the day. Battle and war are my minions, doing my will as divine. I am the calmer of passions. Peace is a nursling of mine. Speak to me gently or curse me, seek me or fly from my sight. I am thy fool in the morning. Thou art my slave in the night. Down to the grave will I take thee, out from the noise of the strife. Then shalt thou see me and know me, death then no longer, but life. Then shalt thou sing at my coming, kiss me with passionate breath, clasp me and smile to have thought me aught save the foeman of death. Come to me, brother, when weary. Come when thy lonely heart swells. I'll guide thy footsteps and lead thee down where the dream woman dwells.
Discrimination by Kenneth Rexroth. I don't mind the human race. I've got pretty used to them in these past 25 years. I don't mind if they sit next to me on streetcars or eat at the same restaurants, if it's not at the same table. However, I don't approve of a woman I respect dancing with one of them. I've tried asking them to my home without success. I shouldn't care to see my own sister marry one. Even if she loved him, think of the children. Their art is interesting, but certainly barbarous. I'm sure if given a chance, they'd kill us all in our beds. And you must admit, they smell.
The Barnacle by A.E. Stallings. The barnacle is rather odd. It's not related to the clam or limpet. It's an arthropod, though one that doesn't give a damn. Cousin to the crab and shrimp, when larval, it can twitch and swim and make decisions, tiny imp that flits according to its whim. Once grown, with nothing more to prove, it hunkers down and will remain stuck fast. And once it does not move, has no more purpose for a brain. Its one boast is, it will not budge, cemented where it chanced to sink, sclerotic, stubborn as a grudge, settled. It does not need to think.
The Faithful by Jane Cooper. Once you said, jokingly slyly, if I'm killed, I'll come to haunt your solemn bed. I'll stand and glower at the head and see if my place is empty still or filled. What was it woke me? In the early darkness for the first birds, twittering, a shape dissolving and flittering and steady as flame in a drafty house. It seemed a concentration of the dark burning by the bedpost at my right hand, while to my left that no man's land of sheets stretched palely as a false morning. All day I have been sick and restless. This evening curtained with all the lights on, I start up only to sit down. Why should I grieve after 10 years of grieving? What if last night I was the one who lay dead, while the dead burned beside me, trembling with passionate pity at my blameless life, and shaking its flame-like head? Thank you.
Love Song by Dorothy Parker. My own dear love, he is strong and bold, and he cares not what comes after. His words ring sweet as a chime of gold, and his eyes are lit with laughter. He is jubilant as a flag unfurled. Oh, a girl, she'd not forget him. My own dear love, he is all my world. And I wish I'd never met him. My love, he's mad. My love, he's fleet. And a wild young wood thing bore him. The ways are fair to his roaming feet, and the skies are sunlit for him. As sharply sweet to my heart he seems as the fragrance of acacia. My own dear love, he is all my dreams. And I wish he were in Asia. My love runs by like a day in June, and he makes no friends of sorrows. He'll tread his galloping rigadoon in the pathway of the morrows. He'll live his days where the sunbeams start, nor could storm or wind uproot him. My own dear love, he is all my heart. And I wish somebody'd shoot him. Thank you.
And If I Did, What Then by George Gascon. And if I did, what then? Are you aggrieved, therefore? The sea hath fished for every man, and what would you have done more? Thus did my mistress once amaze my mind with doubt, and popped a question for the nonce, to beat my brains about. Whereto I thus replied, each fisherman can wish that all the seas, at every tide, were his alone to fish. And so did I, in vain, but since it may not be, let such fish there as find the gain, and leave the loss for me. And with such luck and loss, I will content myself, till tides of turning time may toss such fishers on the shelf. And when they stick on the sands, that every man may see, then will I laugh and clap my hands, as they do now at me. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jaden Hart-Siggers, and this is Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pits from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance,
right, next up, we have Ava Johnson, who's a senior at Pembroke Pines Charter High School.
The Mortician in San Francisco by Randall Mann. This may sound queer, but in 1985, I held the delicate hands of Dan White. I prepared him for burial. By then, Harvey Milk was made monument. No. Myth. By the years since he was shot. I remember when Harvey was shot. 20, and I knew I was queer. Those were the years. Levi's and leather jackets, holding hands on Castro Street, cheering for Harvey Milk. Elected on the same day as Dan White. I often wonder about Supervisor White, who fatally shot Mayor Moscone, and Supervisor Milk, who was one of us, a Castro queer. May 21, 1979, a jury hands down the sentence. 7 years. In truth, 5 years for ex-cop, ex-fireman Dan White, for the blood on his hands, when he confessed that he had shot the mayor and the queer. A few men in blue cheered. And Harvey Milk? Why cry over spilled milk? Some wondered, semi-privately for years. It meant one less queer. The jurors turned to White. If just the mayor had been shot, Dan might have had trouble on his hands. But the 12 who held his life in their hands maybe didn't mind the death of Harvey Milk. Maybe the second murder offered him a shot at serving only a few years. In the end, he committed suicide, this Dan White. And he was made presentable by a queer.
This is Dream Song 14 by John Berryman. Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so. After all, the sky flashes. The great sea yearns. We ourselves flash and yearn. And moreover, my mother told me as a boy, repeatedly, ever to confess you are bored means you have no inner resources. I conclude now I have no inner resources because I am heavy bored. Peoples bore me. Literature bores me, especially great literature. Henry bores me with his plights and gripes as bad as Achilles, who loves people and valiant art, which bores me. And the tranquil hills and gin look like a drag, and somehow a dog has taken itself and its tail considerably away into mountains or sea or sky, leaving behind me, Wag.
Cartoon Physics, Part 1, by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding inexorably pushing into the vacuum. Galaxies swallowed by galaxies. Whole solar systems collapsing. All of it acted out in silence. At 10, we are still learning the rules of cartoon animation, that if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. Anyone else who tries will crash into the rock. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters, arenas where they can be heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives across a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake.
Good morning. I'm going to be reciting A Poison Tree by William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning, glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
Now I Pray by Kathy Engel. Ashen face, wool hat bobbing, the young boy's eyes dart to me, then up at the man pulling a rolling suitcase whose hand he holds, then back at me. His legs move as if without gravity. The man asks, "Do you know a church on this street that serves free food?" I want to say, I know. That the names of churches on an avenue called America's roll out of me. I want to tell you it is temporary, their condition. Suitcase, darting eyes, seeking free food at 9 p.m. in a big city on a school night. I want to tell you I don't, for a moment, wonder if that is really the boy's father or uncle or legitimate caretaker. Something in the hand-holding and eyes, having watched too many episodes of Law & Order. I want to tell you I take them to a restaurant and pay for a warm meal or empty my wallet, not worrying how offensive that might be because, in the end, hunger is hunger. I want to tell you I call someone who loves them, that there is someone, and say, "Your guys are lost. Can you come?" I want to tell you I sit down on the sidewalk at the corner of Waverly and pray.
that all passing by, anonymous shoes marking the pavement, join in a chorus of prayer, humming like cicadas in the delta. I want to tell you, the boy and the man eat food encircled by the warmth of bodies. I want to turn the cold night into a feast. I will tell you, I am praying.
My therapist wants to know about my relationship to work, by Tiana Clark. I hustle upstream, I grasp, I grind, I control and panic, poke balloons in my chest, always popping there. Always my thoughts thump thump. I snooze, wake, and go boom. All day like this, I short my breath. I scroll and scroll. I see what you wrote. I like, I heart. My thumb, so tired. My head bent down, but not in prayer, heavy from the looking. I see your face, your phone lit faces. I tap your food 2 times for more hearts. I retweet. I email yes and yes and yes. Then I cry and need to say no, no, no. Why does it take so long to reply? I FOMO and shout, I read, I never enough. New book, new post, new ping, a new tab, then another. Papers on the floor, scattered and stacked. So many journals, unbroken white spines, waiting. Did you hear that new? I start to text back, ellipses, then I forget. I bulk, I lazy the bed, I wallow when I write, I truth when I lie, I throw a book when a poem undoes me. I underline Clifton. Today, we are possible. I start from image. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley reaching for coal. I start with a napkin, receipt, or my hand. I muscle memory. I stutter the page. I fail. Hit repeat. Scratch out one more line. I sonnet, then break form. I make tea. Use 2 bags. Rooibos again. I bathe now. Epsom salt. No books or phone, just water. And the sound of water filling, glory be my buoyant body bowl of me. Yes, lavender, more bubbles and bath bomb. Of course, some candles too. All alone with Coltrane, my favorite, Naima for his wife, now for me inside my own womb. Again, I child back. I float, I sing, I simple and humble. Eyes close, I low my voice. Was it a song? Don't know, but I stopped.
End of Days Advice from an Ex-Zombie by Michael Derek Hudson. To think, I used to be so good at going to pieces, gobbling my way through the cops and spooking what's left of the girls. How'd I get so far? Sloughing off one knuckle at a time, jerking my mossy pelt along ruined streets. Those insistent, dreadful thuds when we stacked our futile selves against locked doors, our mumbles and groans, such hungry nights. Staggering through the grit of looted malls, plastered with tattered flags of useless currency. I'd slobbered all over the busted glass and merchandise of America. But first, you'll have to figure out those qualities separating what's being alive from who's already dead. Most of you will flunk that. Next, learn how to want one thing over and over, night after night. Most of you are good at that. Don't get tired. Don't cough into your leftovers. Don't think. Always stand by your hobgoblin buddies. Clutch at whatever's there. Learn to sniff out sundowns.
Sonnet, on being cautioned against walking on an edland overlooking the sea, because it was frequented by a lunatic, by Charlotte Smith. Is there a solitary wretch who hies to the tall cliff with starting pace or slow, and measuring, views with wild and hollow eyes its distance from the waves that chide below? Who, as the sea-born gale with frequent sighs chills his cold bed upon the mountain turf, with hoarse, half-uttered lamentation, lies murmuring responses to the dashing surf? In moody sadness on the giddy brink, I see him more with envy than with fear. He has no nice felicities that shrink from giant horrors. Wildly wandering here, he seems, uncursed with reason, not to know the depth or the duration of his woe. Thank you.
Good morning. Across the Bay by Donald Davy. A queer thing about those waters. There are no birds there, or hardly any. Do not remember missing them, thinking it uncanny. The beach, so-called, was a blinding splinter of limestone. We took pleasure in that. The emptiness, the hardness of the light, the silence, and the water's stillness. Yes. But this was the setting for one of our murderous scenes. This hurt goes on hurting. This venomous jelly, the soft undersides. We could stand the world if it were hard all over. Thank you.
The Tide Rises, the Tide Falls by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The tide rises, the tide falls. The twilight darkens, the curlew calls. Along the sea sands, damp and brown, the traveler hastens toward the town. And the tide rises, the tide falls. Darkness settles on roofs and walls, but the sea in the darkness calls. The little waves, with their soft white hands, efface the footprints in the sands. And the tide rises, the tide falls. The morning breaks. The steeds in their stalls stamp and neigh as the hostler calls. The day returns,
but never more returns a traveler to the shore. And the tide rises, the tide falls. Thank you.
Sweetness by Stephen Dunn. Just when it has seemed, I couldn't bear one more friend waking with a tumor, one more maniac with a perfect reason. Often a sweetness has come and changed nothing in the world except the way I stumbled through it. For a while lost in the ignorance of loving someone or something, the world shrunk to mouth size, hand size, and never seeming small. I acknowledge there is no sweetness that doesn't leave a stain, no sweetness that is ever sufficiently sweet. Tonight, a friend called to say his lover was killed in a car he was driving. His voice was low and guttural. He repeated what he needed to repeat, and I repeated the one or two words we have for such grief until we were speaking only in tones. Often, a sweetness comes as if on loan, stays just long enough to make sense of what it means to be alive. Then returns to its dark source. As for me, I don't care where it's been or what bitter road it's traveled to come so far, to taste so good. Thank you.
The Universe as Primal Scream by Tracy K Smith. 5 p.m. on the nose. They open their mouths and it rolls out. High, shrill, and metallic. First the boy, then his sister. Occasionally they both let loose at once. And I think of putting on my shoes to go up and see whether it is merely an experiment their parents have been conducting upon the good crystal, which must surely lie shattered to dust on the floor. Maybe the mother is still proud of the 4 pink lungs she nursed to such might. Perhaps, if they hit the magic decibel, the whole building will lift off and will ride to glory like Elijah. If this is it, if this is what their cries are cocked toward, let the sky pass from blue to red to molten gold to black. Let the heaven we inherit approach. Whether it is our dead in Old Testament robes or a door opening onto the roiling infinity of space, whether it will bend down to greet us like a father or swallow us like a furnace, I'm ready to meet what refuses to let us keep anything for long, what teases us with blessings, bends us with grief, wizard, thief, the great wind rushing to knock our mirrors to the floor, to sweep our short lives clean. How mean our racket seems beside it. my stereo on shuffle, the neighbor chopping onions through a wall, all of it just a hiccup against what may never come for us. And the kids upstairs, still at it, screaming like the dawn of man, as if something they have no name for has begun to insist upon being born. Thank you.
I Am the People, The Mob by Carl Sandburg. I am the people, the mob, the crowd, the mass. Do you know that all great work of the world is done through me? I am the working man, the inventor, the maker of the world's food and clothes. I am the audience that witnesses history. The Napoleons come from me, and the Lincolns. They die, and then I send forth more Napoleons and Lincolns. I am the seed, ground. I am a prairie that will stand for much plowing. Terrible storms pass over me. I forget. Everything but death comes to me and makes me work and give up what I have, and I forget. Sometimes I growl, shake myself, spatter a few red drops for history to remember, then I forget. When I, the people, learn to remember, when I, the people, use the lessons of yesterday and no longer forget who robbed me last year, who played me for a fool, then there will be no speaker in all the world to say the name the people with any fleck of a sneer in his voice or any far-off smile of derision. The mob, the crowd, the mass will arrive then.
A History Without Suffering by E.A. Markham. In this poem, there is no suffering. It spans hundreds of years and records no deaths, connecting, when it can, those moments when people are healthy and happy, content to be alive. A chapter, maybe a volume, shorn of violence, consists of an adult reading aimlessly. This line is the length of a full life smuggled in while no one was plotting against a neighbor, except in jest. Then, after a gap, comes Nellie. She is in a drought-fisted field with a hoe. This is her 12th year on the land, and today her back doesn't hurt. Catechisms of self-pity and of murder have declared a day's truce in the civil war within her. So today we can bring Nellie, content with herself, with the world, into our history for a day. In the next generation, we find a suitable subject camping near the border of a divided country. For a while, no one knows how near. For these few lines, she is ours. But how about the lovers, you ask? The freshly washed body close to yours, sounds, smells, tastes, anticipation of the young, the edited memory of the rest of us. Yes, give them half a line and a mass of footnotes. They have their own privileged history, like inherited income beside our husbandry. We bring our history up to date in a city like London. Someone's just paid the mortgage, is free of guilt, and not dying of cancer. And going past the newsstand doesn't see a headline advertising torture. This is all recommended reading, but in small doses. It shows You can avoid suffering if you try. Thank you.
Advice from La Llorona by Deborah A. Miranda. Each grief has its unique side. Choose the one that appeals to you. Go gently. Your body needs energy to repair the amputation. Humor phantom pain. Your brain cells are soaked with salt. Connections fail unexpectedly and often. Ask for help. Accept help. Read your grief like the daily newspaper. Headlines may have information you need. Scream. Drop kick the garbage can across the street. Don't feel guilty if you have a good time. Don't act as if you haven't been hit by a Mack truck. Do things a little differently, but don't make a lot of changes. Revel in contradiction. Talk to the person who died. Give her a piece of your mind. Try to touch someone at least once a day. Approach grief with determination. Pretend the finish line doesn't keep receding. Lean into the pain. You can't outrun it. Thank you.
Advice from La Llorona by Deborah A. Miranda. A found poem. Each grief has its unique side. Choose the one that appeals to you. Go gently. Your body needs energy to repair the amputation. Humor, phantom pain. Your brain cells are soaked with salt. Connections fail unexpectedly and often. Ask for help. Accept help. Read your grief like the daily newspaper. Headlines may have information you need. Scream. Drop kick the garbage can across the street. Don't feel guilty if you have a good time. Don't act as if you haven't been hit by a Mack truck. Do things a little differently, but don't make a lot of changes. Revel in contradiction. Talk to the person who died. Give her a piece of your mind. Try to touch someone at least once a day. Approach grief with determination. Pretend the finish line doesn't keep receding. Lean into the pain. You can't outrun it. Thank you.
Where the Wild Things Go by D. Gilson. The night Max wore his wolf suit made him infamous. Bred the child star, never sent to bed. Middle school, Max started drinking. Not in my house, his mother begged. No, 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 wild thing. Max reminded her, who bought this condo? Who paid for her meds? Freshman year, Max raved, roared. His terrible roar rolled and almost wound up in a warehouse dead. Where, oh where, do the wild things go? To rehab? In high school. To college? On residual book sales. Max kept his head down, laughed at drunken frat boys. Bro, let the wild rumpus start. Max said, no thanks, and volunteered for the Peace Corps instead. 2 years in Kenya, 1 in Belarus. the president thought Max might be of some use. Max moved to Washington, appointed at the State Department a cultural attaché. One important day, Max wore his wolf gray suit, then drove home, well past rush hour, in a freak snow storm. Max drove on the deserted beltway, thought it his throne. Yes, Max belted. This is where the wild things roam. Thank you.
Famous, by Naomi Shihab Nye. The river is famous to the fish. The loud voice is famous to silence, which knew it would inherit the earth before anybody said so. The cat sleeping on the fence is famous to the birds watching him from the birdhouse. The tear is famous, briefly, to the cheek. The idea you carry close to your bosom is famous to your bosom. The boot is famous to the earth, more famous than the dress shoe, which is famous only to floors. The bent photograph is famous to the one who carries it, and not at all famous to the one who is pictured. I want to be famous to shuffling men who smile while crossing streets, sticky children in grocery lines, famous as the one who smiled back. I want to be famous in the way a pulley is famous, or a buttonhole. Not because it did anything spectacular, but because it never forgot what it could do.
Bent to the Earth by Blas Manuel de Luna. They had hit Reuben with the high beams, had blinded him so that the van he was driving, full of Mexicans going to pick tomatoes, would have to stop. Reuben spun the van into an irrigation ditch, spun the 5-year-old me awake to immigration officers, their batons already out, already looking for the soft spots on the body. To my mother being handcuffed and dragged to a van, to my father trying to show them our green cards. They let us go, but Alvaro was going back. So was his brother Fernando, so was their sister Sonia. Their mother did not escape, and so was going back. Their father was somewhere in the field and was free. There were no great truths revealed to me then, no wisdom given to me by anyone. I was a child who had seen what a piece of polished wood could do to a face, who had seen his father about to lose the one he loved, who had lost some friends who would never return, who later that morning bent to the earth and went to work. Thank you.
I Felt a Funeral in My Brain by Emily Dickinson. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. And when they all were seated, a service like a drum kept beating, beating, till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll, as all the heavens were a bell, and being but an ear, and I and silence, some strange race, wrecked, solitary here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down and down, and hit a world at every plunge, and finished knowing then. Thank you.
To Have Without Holding by Marge Piercy. Learning to love differently is hard. Love with the hands wide open. Love with the doors banging on their hinges, the cupboard unlocked. The wind roaring and whimpering in the rooms, rustling the sheets and snapping the blinds that thwack like rubber bands in an open palm. It hurts to love wide open, stretching the muscles that feel as if they are made of wet plaster, then of blunt knives, then of sharp knives. It hurts to thwart the reflexes of grab, of clutch, to love and let go again and again. It pesters to remember the lover who is not in the bed, to hold back what is owed to the work that gutters like a candle in a cave without air. To love consciously, conscientiously, concretely, constructively. I can't do it, you say. It's killing me, but you thrive. You glow on the street like a neon raspberry. You float and sail, a helium balloon, bright bachelors button blue and bobbing on the cold and hot winds of our breath as we make and unmake in passionate diastole and systole, the rhythm of our unbound bonding, to have and not to hold, to love with minimized malice, hunger and anger, moment by moment, balanced.
No, I wasn't meant to be loved and be loved by Maritza Asadula, Kind Glebe, translated by Maritza Sadiha. No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. If I lived longer, I would have waited longer. Knowing you are faithless keeps me alive and hungry. Knowing you, faithful, would kill me with joy. Delicate are you, and your vows are delicate too. So easily do they break. You are a laconic marksman. You leave me not dead, but perpetually dying. I want my friends to heal me, succor me. Instead, I get analysis, conflagrations that will make stones drip blood, are campfires compared to my anguish, two-headed and inescapable anguish, love's anguish, or the anguish of time, another dark, severing, incommunicable night. Death would be fine if I only died once. I would have liked the solitary death, not this lavish funeral, this grave anyone can visit. You are mystical, Galib, and also, you speak beautifully. Are you a saint or just drunk as usual? Thank you.
Stopping by woods in a snowy evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these a thing I know. His house in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds a sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you.
More Lies by Karen Gottschall. Sometimes I say I'm going to meet my sister at the cafe, even though I have no sister, just because it's such a beautiful thing to say. I've always thought so, ever since I read a novel in which two sisters were constantly meeting in cafes. Today, for example, I walked alone on the wet sidewalk, wearing my rain boots, expecting someone might ask where I was headed. I bought a steno pad and a watch battery. The store windows fogged up. Rain in April is a kind of promise, and it costs nothing. I carried a bag of books to the cafe and ordered tea. I like a place that's lit by lamps. I like a place where you can hear people talk about small things, like the difference between azure and cerulean, and the price of tulips. It's going down. I watched someone who could be my sister walk in, shaking the rain from her hair. I thought even now, florists are filling their coolers with tulips, $5 a bundle. All over the city, there are sisters. Any one of them could be mine. Thank you.
The Arrow in the Psalm by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward, in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song from beginning to end I found again in the heart of a friend.
The End of Science Fiction by Liesl Mueller. This is not fantasy. This is our life. We are the characters who have invaded the moon, who cannot stop their computers. We are the gods who can unmake the world in 7 days. Both hands are stopped at noon. We are beginning to live forever in lightweight aluminum bodies with numbers stamped on our backs. We dial our words like Muzak. We hear each other through water. The genre is dead. Invent something new. Invent a man and a woman naked in a garden. Invent a child that will save the world. A man who carries his father out of a burning city. Invent a spool of thread that leads a hero to safety. Invent an island on which he abandons the woman who saved his life with no loss of sleep over his betrayal. Invent us as we were, before our bodies glittered and we stopped bleeding. Invent a shepherd who kills a giant, a girl who grows into a tree, a woman who refuses to turn her back on the past and is changed into salt. Invent a boy who steals his brother's birthright and becomes the head of a nation. Invent real tears. Hard love. Slow spoken. Ancient words. Difficult as a child's first steps across a room. Thank you.
Oh, could I raise the darkened veil by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Oh, could I raise the darkened veil which hides my future life from me? Could unborn ages slowly sail before my view, and could I see my every action painted there? To cast one look, I would not dare. There poverty and grief might stand, and dark despair's corroding hands might make me seek the lonely tomb, to suffer in its endless gloom. Then let me never take a look within fate's fixed, mysterious book. Thank you.
Very Large Moth by Craig Arnold. After DHL. Your first thought when the black wings clatter about the kitchen, your first thought when the light snaps on and the black wings clatter about the kitchen is a bat. The clear part of your mind considers rabies. The other part does not consider, knows only to startle and cower away from the slap of its wings. Though soon, it is clearly not a bat, but a moth, and harmless. Still, you are shy of it. It clings to the hood of the stove, not black, but brown. Its orange eyes sparkle like televisions. Its leg joints are large enough to count. How could you kill it? Where would you hide the body? A creature so solid must have room for a soul. And if this is true, then why not in a creature half its size? Or half its size again? And so on, down to the ants. Clearly, it must be saved. Caught in a shopping bag and rushed to the front door, afraid to crush it, feeling the plastic rattle. Loosened into the night air, it batters the porch light, throwing fitful shadows around the landing. That was a really big moth, is all you can say to the doorman who has watched your whole performance with a smile. The half compassion and half horror we feel for the creatures we want not to hurt and prefer not to touch.